The divorce was a formality, looking at the paperwork. The real work was done long before the paperwork was filed. Keith signed the settlement agreement in August. Nicole followed in early September, and everything was filed as uncontested on September 30th. That tells you they resolved everything behind closed doors long before they filed.
Speaking of your amazing love story with Nicole, you met at G'day Australia. Is that what it was called?
G'day LA.
G'day LA.
Yeah.
If you hadn't both been there that day, would your paths somewhere have inevitably crossed? Or maybe this incredible
probably.
life story wouldn't have happened?
No, I think it would.
Yeah? Are you a believer in fate, or do you think as two Australians it would have happened?
No idea.
I just often think that if you weren't at that event, maybe you don't have the same friendship group, it may never have happened.
Well, never know.
Months before the world learned that Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were separating after nearly 2 decades of marriage, the country singer had already sent out a quiet cry for help. During a candid moment captured for his upcoming docuseries The Road, Keith described his life on tour as completely lonely and miserable. At the time, fans thought it was just artistic vulnerability. But now, in the wake of his heartbreaking split from Nicole, those words hit very differently. This is the story of how Keith, Urban's lonely confessions, became the soundtrack to the end of one of Hollywood's most admired marriages, and how the cracks were showing long before anyone realized. Keith and Nicole's love story began like a movie. They met in 2005 at a G-Day LA event, both at the top of their careers, both searching for something real amid the chaos of fame. Within a year, they were married in Sydney. From the outside, they seemed unshakable. The glamorous actress and the country star who had beaten his demons to find peace in love. But behind that perfect image, their worlds were constantly pulling them apart. Keith's music career required endless travel, months on the road, sleepless nights on buses, and the loneliness that comes with being idolized by thousands yet known by no one. Nicole's acting career, meanwhile, kept her on film sets across the globe. For years, they managed the distance with grace, often crediting communication and devotion for keeping their relationship strong. But over time, those cracks widened. In the promotional rollout for his new show, The Road, Keith was uncharacteristically honest about how isolating life on tour can be. When you wake up on a tour bus at 3:30 in the morning, he said, you miss your friends, you're completely lonely and miserable, and you say to yourself, why am I doing this? Those words, in hindsight, read like a confession from a man emotionally adrift. This wasn't just exhaustion from performing, it was a deeper kind of sadness. A man grappling with a life that had become too heavy to carry. Keith went on to say, it's a calling, and you're going to do it, or you're not going to make it. That statement summed up the impossible balance he'd been fighting for years. The calling of music versus the cost it took on his home life. His success demanded sacrifice, and that sacrifice was slowly bleeding into his marriage. Even before that clip aired, subtle warning signs had been surfacing. In a resurfaced radio interview with Jonesy and Amanda, Keith was asked about the early days of meeting Nicole. When the host joked, would your paths have inevitably crossed? Keith awkwardly paused before responding, no idea. He laughed it off, but the discomfort was impossible to miss. That interview has now gone viral, with fans pointing out how uneasy he seemed whenever her name came up. For those who followed their relationship closely, these emotional slips paint a painful picture. One of two people who had grown apart quietly. Their once easy chemistry replaced by polite distance. The reality of tour life often clashes with the fantasy we see on screen. Yes, there are screaming fans, flashing lights, and award shows. But once the lights go down, what remains is silence. And silence can be deafening. Studies have shown that the psychological strain of touring, the constant displacement and absence from loved ones, can cause severe emotional burnout. For Keith, who once battled addiction and used music as his therapy, that isolation may have reopened old wounds. Nicole, meanwhile, seemed to be hinting at turmoil of her own. Just weeks before the split was confirmed, she gave an interview where she said, "You think you know where your life is going, and then it isn't going in that direction." Fans now see that line as an emotional preview of what was coming. On September 29, 2025, the world learned the truth. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had separated after 19 years together. The official filing came the very next day. Sources close to the couple claimed they had already been living separately since early summer, with Keith focused on his music projects and Nicole prioritizing her daughters and upcoming film commitments. For many, The timing of Keith's lonely and miserable comments was too close to be coincidence. What once looked like promotion for a docuseries suddenly felt like an emotional breakdown caught on camera. As the internet dissected every word of his interviews, the rumor mill exploded. Some fans speculated about a possible third party, pointing to Keith's close working relationship with guitarist Maggie Baugh, who appears in several behind-the-scenes clips from the road. Though there's been no evidence to suggest an affair, the tabloids pounced on the narrative. One outlet claimed that Keith's lyrics in unreleased songs from the show hinted at new love, or a longing to escape his old life. Others pushed back, insisting that Keith's words were simply about the crushing solitude of fame. In a TikTok clip that has now reached over 10 million views, a fan commented, "He wasn't talking about being single, he was talking about being alone, even when you're surrounded by people." That sentiment struck a chord with many, especially those who have followed Keith's journey through sobriety and mental health struggles. Meanwhile, Nicole has handled the situation with characteristic grace. In an interview with the New York Post, she referred to recent events as painful and devastating, saying only that she was focusing on her daughters and her work. The actress has always been fiercely private about her personal life, and insiders say she intends to keep it that way, even as speculation about custody arrangements grows. Keith, on the other hand, seems to be using the road as a form of emotional catharsis. The show, set to premiere on October 19th, offers an unfiltered look at his life as a touring musician, the highs, the breakdowns, and the truth behind the music. Viewers will likely see more of those raw, confessional moments that hint at how deeply he was struggling before the public ever knew. The narrative surrounding Keith and Nicole's split isn't one of betrayal or scandal. It's a quieter, more tragic story, one of emotional distance, unspoken pain, and the loneliness that fame often brings. For nearly 20 years, they were seen as proof that celebrity marriages could survive. They overcame addiction, career pressure, and media scrutiny. But sometimes love, even deep love, can't outrun exhaustion. Sometimes two people just grow in different directions. Now, as Keith steps into a new chapter, his words linger, lonely and miserable. It's rare to hear a man of his stature speak so openly about the cost of success, the emptiness behind applause. In a way, his confession was a gift, a reminder that even the most seemingly perfect lives can fracture quietly under the weight of expectation. As the story continues to unfold, fans are left wondering, was this the final chapter, or will time and reflection bring reconciliation? For now, both seem to be healing in their own ways. Nicole has returned to film sets, refocusing on work and family. Keith is back on stage, channeling his pain into performance. But whether their paths cross again, in friendship, co-parenting, or closure, only time will tell. One thing is certain, when Keith Urban spoke about being lonely on the road, he wasn't just talking about miles traveled or empty hotel rooms. He was talking about the emotional distance that had crept into his life, the kind that no spotlight, applause, or love song could fix. And maybe that's the real tragedy of fame, when the life you've built looks perfect from the outside, but on the inside, it feels like you're driving down a long, dark road searching for home. That's a wrap on today's video. See you in the next one. Love you guys so much. Bye.